These are your Unit 1B, Day 2 review. In this set of video notes, you are going to practice simplifying each expression. We are simplifying roots. When we simplify roots, we break it down into primes and then simplify it. Okay? So let's start. My first step is to find the prime factorization of the number. So I have 24, and I need to pick two numbers that multiply to make 24. 24 is an even number, so I know it's divisible by 2. If I put 24 in my calculator and do 24 divided by 2, I get an answer of 12. So I know that 2 times 12 is equal to 24. Something that I notice here is the number 2. 2 is a prime number, so I must circle it. Now I go to 12, and I need to think of two numbers multiply to make 12. Well, if I can't remember my factors, this is an even number, so I can go ahead and take 12 and divide it by 2. 12 divided by 2. If I put that in my calculator, I get an answer of 6. So that means 2 times 6 is equal to 12. So I'm going to circle my 2. Next, I see I have the number 6. Again, this is not a prime factor, so I can continue to break it down. And I need to think of two numbers I multiply to make 6. Well, 6 is an even number, so I know I can divide it by 2. 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. So 2 times 3 is equal to 6. 2 and 3 are both prime numbers. So I circle those, and then I move on to my next step. I have created a prime factor tree. You will be asked to complete questions where all you have to do is create this tree. But when we're simplifying roots, there's some more steps you have to take. The next step is that you go ahead and you put all of the prime numbers under a square root symbol. So that would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. That's 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. The next thing that I do is I circle my pairs. A pair is a group of 2. So it has to be a number where there's 2 of them. So I have 1, 2, 3 2s, but I only circle the pair. There has to be a perfect match of 2. So I have 2 2s right here. Now I go ahead, I'm going to rewrite my square root. I have a pair of 2s. When I have a pair of 2s inside my square root, that means that I put a pair, this pair of 2 inside, that equals 1 on the outside. Then I take everything that's in here and I put it under my square root. My last step is to see if I have any numbers to multiply. I have a plain 2 out here, so I leave that the way it is. I look here, and I have a 2 times 3. I have 2 numbers in here to multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. So my answer is 2 square root 6. And I'm going to put just a little thing like this. So this was my first step. This was my second step. This was my third step. And this was my fourth step. Okay? If these numbers will confuse you, don't add them. I just kind of wanted to show the order. Okay, let's move on to 40. First, we know that we have 4 times 10 is equal to 40. I want you now to pause the video and think of 2 numbers that you multiply to make 4 and 2 numbers you multiply to make 10. Okay, hopefully you tried that and you got 2 times 2 is equal to 4 and 2 times 5 is equal to 10. These are all prime numbers, and you can see that from the list up here, so they must be circled. Now I've created my prime factor tree. But I must move on to the next part, which is simplifying the root. My first step for that is to place all of the prime factors under a square root symbol. So again, we have 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. My next step is to circle any pairs that exist. I have a pair of 2s right here, so I'm going to circle them. Because I have a pair, after I find my pair, then that goes on the outside of the square root symbol. So I have a new square root symbol, and I need to put my 2 here because I have a pair of 2s. If I have a pair of 2s on the inside, that equals 1 on the outside. And then I'm left with 2 times 5. If I look inside here, I have 2 numbers, 2 times 5. In order to be done simplifying, I must multiply those together. So my answer would be 2 square root 10, because 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, now we have this next problem, the square root of 100. You might notice something interesting about this. This is a perfect square because 10 times 10 equals 100. So we don't even have to simplify this because it's a perfect square. And you know it's a perfect square if when you put it in your calculator, the square root of 100, you'll get this whole number of 10. You can also figure that out by following the steps that we did here. You'll see you'll get the same answer. So we have 10 times 10 equals 100, and 2 times 5, and 2 times 5. We circle our prime numbers. We put our prime numbers under a new square root. Next, we find our pairs. Oops, I'm not going to read. Next, we find our pairs. And you can see we have a pair of 2s and a pair of 5s. So we redraw our square root symbol. And on the outside, we have 2 times 5, and that is because our pair of 2s and our pair of 5s. And we are left with nothing inside. Then we look right here, we have 2 numbers on the outside, so we must multiply those together. 2 times 5 is equal to 10. Okay, so you can see here, even if we follow all the steps, because you forget that this is a perfect square root, you're still going to get this answer of 10. But you do not need to do all this because 10 times 10 equals 100, and that's a perfect square. That's a square root. The answer is 10. And you can know that by putting it in your calculator. The square root of 100 is 10. A lot of these facts have been memorized already. You guys, like 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 3 times 3 is 9. We know that those numbers are our perfect squares. So if you forget, you can follow these steps. If you get a whole number, you know it's a perfect square. Or you can just check with your calculator, and if you get a whole number, you know it's a perfect square and you don't have to take any more steps. All right, next, we are going to look at, we have the square root of 18. First, I need to break my number down into its prime with the prime factor tree. So I have 6 times 3. 3 is a prime number, so I circle it. Then we have 2 times 3. 2 is a prime number, and 3 is a prime number, so I circle those. My next step is to draw a new square root and put the prime numbers underneath. So I have 2 times 3 times 3. 2 times 3 times 3. Now I identify if there's any pairs, any groups of 2. And I can see that we have 2 3s here, so I'm going to circle those. And then I draw a new square root symbol. I have 2 3s on the inside. That equals 1 3 on the outside. And what's left in here is the number 2. So 2 would go inside. And there's nothing left to multiply, so my answer would be 3 square root 2. Okay? All right. Make sure that you have all of this recorded in your notes. It's a good idea sometimes to just listen and then write it down. Okay, and they say that writing something down is equivalent to reading or listening to something 7 times. So it's important to listen and then write. Or you can listen and write as you go. But the most important thing is that you're doing what works best for you to help you learn this material as you're watching these notes, okay? Our test is tomorrow. If you would like a time to meet with me, please email me and we can find a time to meet.